everybody. I'm Adriel Wilson. I am the indie publisher representative at DriveThruRPG. And part of the reason that I'm on this panel today is because of that, but also because in my other life, I'm also an independent game publisher, part of Ninth Level Games. So I've got a perspective from both sides, from inside DriveThruRPG and from outside DriveThruRPG. So hopefully I'll be able to tell you some good stuff and answer some questions that you have. And with me today, I have...
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Petkash. I am the DriveThruCards Publisher Relations representative. I work with all publishers who have anything from their own standalone card games or expansions to getting promo cards printed to promote their RPG or other games, as well as work with RPG publishers who have either, say, a card deck that's a part of their game mechanic that they want to offer as POD, or we even offer some Game Master screen type inserts. And a lot of the RPG publishers I work with in that regard use those too. I'll share a little bit more in a little bit, but let me throw it back to Adriel.
Before we move on, Brian also handles all of our posters, and I just sent a customer email for one of the publishers I work with today, and their Kickstarter has posters on it, and I'm super excited because it's for a Heavy Metal Thunder Mouse expansion, and I love that game. So I'm like, yes, I want the posters that we print. I am backing this immediately. Okay, let's get into it. If you're not familiar with DriveThruRPG or DriveThruCards, they are both under the umbrella of One Bookshelf. And what One Bookshelf is a number of sites that give you the tools to, one, publish your own content, but two, to search for and buy a huge volume of content. And included in that umbrella of sites is the Dungeon Masters Guild. So I want to start there because a lot of folks, when they're talking to me about publishing with DriveThru, they want to know about publishing content for Dungeons and Dragons. And there are two ways you can do that. You can do that on the Dungeon Masters Guild. And when you're doing it there, you get to use some of the content that's exclusive to Wizards of the Coast and to Dungeon Masters Guild. But if you're making up from your own mind, a new setting for D&D or maps that you want to sell, and they're not based on content that already exists in the D&D universe, you can publish under something called the Open Gaming License. And that is what you would be publishing your D&D content on DriveThruRPG with. And so DriveThruRPG is open to all sorts of content. And Brian mentioned earlier that he talks to publishers about cards on any of our sites, and that's true. If one of my publishers is like, hey, I have a cards question, I send them to Brian, because on DriveThruRPG, you can list card titles, you can list digital PDFs only, you can do print on demand books, you can do STL files. We've got a ton of folks who are like, hey, here's some minis that I designed for my game, and you can buy them and print them at home. So we've just got all sorts of stuff on there. Last year, towards the end of last year, I was working with a publisher who had an RPG title. He had designed the system, he had written the book, and he'd composed a soundtrack for it. So you could get the soundtrack along with buying that RPG. So I just did a lot of talking right there. And basically what I'm trying to tell you is, if you create content for tabletop role playing, DriveThruRPG is the place you should be. And the first thing you're going to need to do, if you don't already have a customer account, is to sign up for that account. And then you'll see on your screen when you log in, you'll see an account tab at the top of your screen. And if you click on that account tab, there is a My Content section. And you might be like, great, I'm done. I just go to that My Content section and upload my title, right? Sort of. If you are writing content or like creating a soundtrack, anything that is for an existing system that has a community content program, the My Content section is where you're going to upload that. So that's for things like Miskatonic repository, Free League, like those are existing systems, and the publishers of those systems have created a way for you to create content for those systems without getting in any trouble. So if you're like, yes, I wrote this amazing, Cthulhu adventure and I want it to be for Call of Cthulhu, you would do it through Miskatonic repository. But if you're like, I wrote an amazing Cthulhu game and it uses coins as a mechanic, and also you have to paint your face green. That is publishing your own content. And in order to do that on any of our sites, you need to sign up for a publisher account. So you're logged in with your customer account, scroll down to the very bottom of any page on one of our sites, and you'll see a link where it's telling you like, hey, here's some more information about how to be a publisher, and you can sign up. And so let's say you've gotten that far and you're like, I signed up for my publisher account, but I accidentally put in my email address instead of my publisher name. You would just write to us and we can fix that for you. And the cool thing about publisher accounts on our sites is that they're all linked. So a community content program, as I said earlier, you do through My Content. And those are the same tools that you would use on the DMs Guild or the Storytellers Guild, right? You're going to see very similar tools when you click on the new Publish tab that appears at the top of your screen once you've created a publisher account. So say you've done that and you're like, oh, you know what? But I also wrote a novel a couple of years ago and it would be really cool to get my book out into the world. You can use the same login that you use on DriveThruRPG or DriveThruCards on DriveThruFiction. And when you get to that back end, you will see totally similar tools, so you don't have to learn a new system. And you just need to be conscious of, if you're working on your fiction title, make sure you're logged into fiction. And if you're working on your RPG, that you're logged into DriveThruRPG. So once you've got your digital version of your title up there and you're like, oh man, now I want to do print on demand, we've got a ton of resources for that as well. We have a publisher knowledge base where we've got tutorials for Scribus, Affinity, and InDesign for laying out a print book. And I think we have similar articles for cards. Is that correct, Brian?
That's correct. We have articles and templates prepped for getting your card file ready to go. And we also offer custom printed tuck boxes. So we offer templates and spec guidelines for those as well.
How does, say someone, okay, actually, let me use my publishing company as an example. So I work with two business partners, Chris and Heather at Ninth Level Games, and we have used DriveThruCards to print up decks that we've wanted to have available for selling at conventions in the before times. And we've also used DriveThruCards to print up inserts, like little card inserts if we're shipping dice or something like that. If say Chris and Heather are on vacation, Chris does most of our layout, and we have a card deadline, and I'm like totally new to laying out cards, where would I start? And can I download those templates from DriveThruCards?
You would download those templates from the publisher knowledge base that Adriel you already referenced.
Cool.
If someone is brand new to layout, there's a couple of options. Certainly the Creative Suite from Adobe is kind of expensive, but Affinity Publisher is relatively inexpensive, and it's just as powerful in many ways as the Creative Suite. But we also offer our design team put together some tutorials in how to lay out a card file using InDesign or using Affinity. And that would be one place. And they're pretty straightforward. And I know a lot of publishers who were kind of new to layout and design used those tutorials and got through pretty well with that.
Cool.
Another option is we do have a deck builder tool on site that is, once you have your publisher account, the deck builder tool is one of the various publisher tools that kind of unlocks and opens for you to use. And with that tool, you would just upload JPEG images of your card backs and your card faces, a few clicks, and our system will kind of crunch the print ready PDF for you. You do want to make sure though that your JPEGs are the right size and suit the specs that are listed on there. But usually once someone uses that tool though and gets their JPEGs uploaded and kind of click finish, so our system will make the PDF. Usually it takes 12 to 24 hours for our system to churn out a PDF for you. And then you'll have that PDF you can upload, you can order your proof.
That is very cool. Thank you. Part of the reason that I asked Brian that question is that I wanted to lead into book printing. And when you are publishing books, like physical print on demand books via DriveThru, we also have templates on the publisher knowledge base similar to the card templates that lets you sort of download that template and put your stuff in there. So it's a little bit easier than starting from scratch if you're not an experienced layout person. And it's also a super great way to learn. But one very specific to books things is that the printer that we work with for books requires certain specifications, both for the interior and for the cover of your title. And to make things as easy as we possibly could for you, we added a book printing section to our publisher hub. So when you're on the site and you click your publish tab, on the left-hand side, you will see a book printing section. And in that book printing section is where you can download the cover template that you need to put your cover on in order for it to get approved through our printer's pre-media checks. And you can download interior templates as well for that not having to start from scratch thing. So before we go any further, we have a question from Stephen Strange. And Stephen's question is, one type of content that I make for my own RPG games is taking random roll tables, sort of like encounters, treasure, weather, etc., and automating them in Microsoft Excel. Can I publish them? Yes, you absolutely can. So one of the cool things that a lot of people I have found, like, especially when they're just getting started, don't know is that once you've created the title listing for your title, there's a section next to your title. So like if you're on your publisher hub, you will see the listing you've created. It'll have your title, it'll have what formats it's in, it'll have the price you set, and you'll probably see something that says make public or make private, depending on the status of your title. I'll come back to that. There is an update files sort of, it's not a button, but it says update files, and it's got a cool little arrow on top of a laying down bracket. So click that link and you'll be able to update the files associated with your title. But not only will you be able to update the files, but you'll be able to select what type of file you are selling. And that is huge for customers, because most customers, when they come to a listing, they're going to glance pretty quickly and they want to know exactly what they're getting as soon as they see the listing. So if you've got something like an STL file or an audio file, or in Steven's example, an Excel file, you can select the thing, like the file type that is most closely linked to what you've got on there. And then of course we want you to expand on what the customer would be getting if they purchase your title in the product description. And we've got a lot of cool tools in the edit a title listing page that let you do that. There's a place where you can upload images to include in your product description. And one difference between books and cards on our site is that typically, I mean, not even typically, pretty much always, a book is going to have a digital file associated with it, even if you're doing a print on demand. And so when you've got a digital PDF associated with your existing title listing, you can create previews. And there's a cool button above the price of your title on your Publisher Hub. It says change preview. It's got a little eye on it, like a human eye, not like an eye with a dot at the top. And you click on that and you can select which pages the preview points to. And if you've got multiple PDFs associated with your title, you can choose which one is the preview is linked to. But something I see a lot with cards, and I'm sure you'll have a lot to add to this, Brian, is that that's not always the case, because a lot of times with cards, folks are offering print on demand only because printing cards at home is sort of out of reach for a lot of folks. And so I don't see as many previews there. What do you tell your publishers, Brian, when you want to encourage them to like beef up their product descriptions?
The two best things that a publisher can do, because the preview does require a digital file to be associated with it to link to. And as Adriel said, the most publishers on DriveThruCards really are just doing the POD. There are certainly a number who do digital print and play download options. And certainly those publishers that have that will link the preview and have that as something for customers to review and look at. But the two things that I suggest are you can actually put in pictures of like your proof deck or pictures from your PDF, and you can embed those into your title description on the DriveThru page, product page. So customers can see exactly what the cards look like. The other suggestion is if you have a gameplay video or even a promotional video, you can embed a YouTube link into your title description as well. And that's another way that you can showcase the cards to potential customers. And those two ways really do, I think, enhance a title's listing on our site.
Awesome. Thank you. So we have another question from Stephen Strange. And the question is, how does publishing content work when using copyrighted material like Wizards of the Coast Dungeons and Dragons source material? So DriveThruRPG and the Dungeon Masters Guild are two sites under one bookshelf, and both offer the ability to print content for Dungeons and Dragons, but in different ways. So for example, you want to design content for using 5th edition D&D, you can do that on the DMs Guild, or you can do that under the OGL, the Open Gaming License that Wizards makes available for folks to be able to print and sell and make all that stuff, content for Dungeons and Dragons. But let's say you very specifically wanted to publish content for the Forgotten Realms. You can only publish that content on the DM's Guild. So say you want to print and sell your D&D content, if it's your own complete design and what you've done is use the existing structure of Dungeons and Dragons, but not pulled specific content, like in the Forgotten Realms example, you would publish under the OGL on DriveThruRPG. So let's say you want to publish content for Call of Cthulhu, you would use the community content program, the Miskatonic repository that's available on DriveThruRPG. And the key here is, if you are creating content for an existing system, and I tell many of my new publishers this, depending on what they're doing, always look for a website and check out what kind of licensing that publisher has put in place, right? So we have a number of community content programs on DriveThru, and they are awesome and robust. Included in that is the DM's Guild and the Storytellers Vault. Those programs allow you to easily upload and sell content that is associated with those existing rule systems. You do that using the My Content section under Account. But if you've created something from whole cloth and you've designed it, you've done everything, that goes under your publisher account on DriveThruRPG. And there is a wide range of options in the world of RPGs when it comes to that kind of publishing. Like, you'll see on our sites a lot of content for Troika by the Melisonian Arts Council, and you are allowed to publish content on your own for Troika without their permission, but you need to follow the license terms that they've outlined on their website. So for folks out there who are specifically looking for D&D rules, you should go to dnd.wizards.com/articles/features/systems-reference-document-SRD, or do what I do literally every day and just type Dungeons Dragons SRD into a search box, and it'll take you to that page. And that's where you can see, like, there's a good intro chart to figuring out where your content belongs, and it's where you can get the Dungeons and Dragons system reference document. That system reference document contains the open gaming license, and read it. I know that there are legal terms in there, but read that license, because one of the things that we see all the time is that folks haven't implemented it correctly. And it's generally always a super easy fix, but you wanna try and, like, head those things off at the pass before you start publishing. So we're getting a lot more questions. So I'm gonna move to those, and then Brian, if you want to show off your cards, that would be awesome.
Sure.
So Donald Kelly asks, do you need to be a business/legal entity to make a publisher account on OBS sites? No, you do not. Now, I am not a lawyer, okay? Everybody remember that. I am not a lawyer. You do not need to be a business entity to publish on our sites. However, once you start selling things that you have made in the US, technically you are a business, and you technically need to pay taxes on that. I don't want to say any more about it because I do not know enough, but I will say this. You as an individual can just list stuff on our sites with no problems. So hopefully that helps. And if it didn't, please put a follow-up question in chat. All right, so Rodolfo Alameda asks, what level tier content for D&D is being played and purchased the most in recent years? Um, I honestly, I don't know. We would have to do some digging in the numbers. But I will tell you that the majority of titles I see uploaded using the OGL tend to be 5th edition. Like they're the now system. We do have a huge robust selection of content for AD&D, 2nd edition, OSR stuff that's separate from D&D, but the majority of the new stuff I see on a day-to-day basis tends to be related to 5th edition. And people, like, our customers want everything. They want maps, they want characters, they want adventures. Like, D&D, as you all are, I'm sure, aware, is freaking huge, and it is a really, really good selling system, obviously, on our sites and of course for Wizards. All right. Randy Hayes asks, there was a major price increase for POD premium color. Do you see this as a temporary or permanent situation? Honestly, Randy, we don't know yet. We know for sure that these prices are going to continue through the end of the year. Like, they are set in stone until December 31st. And my guess is that they would continue past that, but we don't know for sure. So just keep that in mind as you are working on your own content. And one of the coolest things that is a super helpful reference for me is that in our publisher knowledge base, we have an article about the available book formats and prices. And there's a link you can click on that gets you to a page on DriveThruRPG. And that page like has in 2 different ways, it lists out the options that you have for color, for size, and it tells you how much that costs. And you can put in the number of pages you think your title is going to be, or maybe you know already, and it will give you a price estimate, which is super, super helpful when you're doing things like crowdfunding. All right, so Jason Crusculo asks, do you have resources pages for artists and editors, etc.? Yes, we do, Jason. We have a huge section of stock art. It is one of my favorite parts of the site. One, because there's just a bunch of really cool art on there that I get to look at. But 2, because I am not an illustrator. I've got some basic graphic design skills, but my drawings are like, Honey Heist type, like scribblings. And let's say I want to lay out a book and I don't have an artist that I'm working with. Going to our stock art filters it's inexpensive. There's a huge variety, so you can probably get almost exactly what you want, if not exactly what you want. And we also tell folks, like, we encourage everyone who's listing stock art to make sure that the licenses for those pieces of art are clear, so that you know when you're buying it whether you're allowed to use it for commercial purposes or not, and what the rules are around attribution. Because if someone draws you something, you probably want to put their name on it. And some artists require that and some artists don't. And while we're talking about this, if you go to Pixabay and you search for something and you find a picture, do not assume that that picture is safe for you to use in your commercial product, because many times folks will upload art that doesn't really belong to them, and that can get you in trouble. Part of the reason that we have a product approval process when you're a new publisher, I'll get back to that in a minute, is because we want to make sure that your product is following our rules, following other people's rules, and that we're giving you the information you need to succeed. So a couple times I've had a product come through my hands that was using art that I knew they didn't have a license to use, but they didn't know that because Pixabay doesn't tell them that. So just keep that in mind in general whenever you want to use someone's art or written content, that you need to check on the licensing directly with that artist if at all possible, because you don't want to get in trouble and they don't want to get mad at you. Nobody wants that. Okay, so there is also a ton of resources for editors. You can just Google like best ways to edit titles. We also have an amazing Discord where a lot of our publishers get together and they help each other. And we're there too, but like it's really great because I love it when a publisher asks a question and before we can answer it, another publisher has been like, I went through that and I did this. Now, as a person who also does editing for this side gig, here are my recommendations. And this is the biggest one. If you wrote it, get someone else to edit it. It's really, really hard to edit your own work and you will miss things. I 100% guarantee you that will happen. For a 9th level game, you can buy any of our games and I guarantee you there's probably a typo that escaped our notice, not because we wanted that to happen, but because we're a small team of people and we're all doing all the things. So if you can, please get someone else to edit your content, and when you're ready to upload it, always do a last pass first, especially print on demand, because once you upload your files for print on demand, they will go through pre-media checks. Once they're approved or rejected, and we'll tell you why you were rejected, you'll need to order a proof. And if there's something wrong in that proof that you feel like you really need to fix, you will have to go through the whole process again. We don't want you to have to do that. So always do that last check and join our Discord. So that was a lot of words out of my mouth. Brian, please tell us more about the card options that are available on DriveThru.
Sure thing. And before I do that, I want to jump in on the artist. I know that question was probably geared toward more RPG type stuff, but we do on DriveThruCards also have publisher templates, like other publishers have made ready to go templates for card faces and card backs. And we also have, if you were interested in doing a poker deck, we do offer 3 different packs of card faces. One's the standard card faces, one's dark fantasy artwork by Steve Ellis, and then one's kind of a high fantasy artwork card faces also by Steve Ellis. But those are available to use if you wanted to do your own card back and kind of merge that together. So we have similar resources for cards production at your disposal.
Hey, but Brian,
yeah,
just real quick, do folks ever sell their own card back designs so that if you wanted to do different symbols on the front of the card, you could choose like a cool back from someone on DriveThruCards?
There's a small handful of backs, but generally that's the one that the publisher actually will end up designing themselves. So,
yeah,
good question.
Thank
you. Card-wise, like size-wise, we offer a number of different things. We have, of course, we have poker-size cards, both Euro and US size poker cards. I have these sampler packs. They showcase the 2 card stocks that we use. One's a premium smooth stock and one's an embossed, slightly textured stock. These are available for free. If you're interested in getting these, I can send these to you. My email is Brian with an I at onebookshelf.com. So just you can send me an email with a request for these and your address, and I can get those off to you. We also offer mini cards. They're about half the size of poker.
I love
We
them.
have tarot size cards as well. And many RPG publishers have been using, we have a 6x6 tile. A lot of RPG publishers are using this to create maps for their games. This comes with about 40 more of these. And so when you lay it out, it's a giant map of a ship and some underground caverns and stuff. 8x10 tiles that we offer are very similar to these and also are used a lot for map making. And then also for RPGs, we have a lot of publishers that will do, I think I mentioned the Game Master's screens. So we can print these 8.5 by 11 screen inserts. On site for customers, we also offer this really great Game Master screen that folds and has these inserts. So a customer that orders your GM screen inserts would get the 8-panel inserts that you would just slip in to this to set up. So this is one that Numenera did. It's kind of hard to see with the glare, but so we do have a lot of options when it comes to printing card products with us. And as Adriel said, we also have posters, which a lot of publishers use for promotional type stuff. And that's just printed on regular 100-pound paper. Nice. So when with working with me, if you were to want to do a card product, once you get your publisher account set up, that unlocks all the tools that you need in order to upload your print-ready file and place your order. A lot of publishers do sell their print-on-demand cards on site, but I'd say we probably have easily half of the publishers that I work with that really just use us to print some cards for themselves, whether it be for a Kickstarter reward, promo cards to take to a convention, little expansion packs they also take to a convention or just sell on their own. But a lot of them just print with us and get the cards themselves. Our pricing for cards, we do have a print card cost calculator that you can input the size of your deck and the card type and how many, what size, what stock, and we'll spit out to you the price of that deck. But it's all on a per card basis. So for example, our poker cards are 9.5 cents a card. Our tarot cards are 17 cents a card. The minis are, right now they're 7.5. That's probably going to go up to 9.5, but all very affordable. And we don't require that you use up an entire sheet. So you don't have to fill every sheet slot on an 18 or 20 card sheet because we print everything across sheets. So you can have a 10 card deck, you can have a 16 card deck, a 23 card deck, 57. It doesn't have to be any set multiple. It can do anything that you need in that regard.
I need to jump in and say, folks at home, that is freaking huge. So as a publisher who's done both boxed card games and ordered cards from DriveThru to sell at conventions, one, the quality is the same. But when I'm doing a box game, I have to fit a certain number of cards, and being able to be like, I want to make a card game that is 7 cards, and being able to do that is so awesome. Okay, thank you for letting me interrupt you. I just wanted to be excited about that.
It is a big deal, and not just for the larger manufacturers, but a lot of print-on-demand operations still require some set sheet requirements that you fill every slot, and you're buying the sheet, not necessarily the cards, which is why we want to make our card pricing per card. For now, I think that's good. Cool. Do we have any other questions?
I don't see any more questions in the chat, but there is something else that I want to tell everybody at home. Because you are probably there going, okay, this all sounds fine and good, but how much does it cost? So to be a publisher on DriveThruRPG, DriveThruCards, DriveThruFiction, the Wargame Vault, it costs you nothing. When you sign up for your account, you are going to sign either an exclusive agreement or a non-exclusive agreement. An exclusive agreement, and you can read more about this on our publisher knowledge base, means that you're agreeing to sell your digital content through our site only. But you can sell your print-on-demand titles wherever. So let's say you have a title and you kickstarted it. You can have the digital on our site and nowhere else, but you can, one, let people buy their print on demand as they want to, and two, you can buy in bulk for, and I am being 100% honest with you, for the same price we are paying our printer. So you can buy a bulk order of books, get it shipped to you, and sell it from wherever you want, a convention, wherever. That's a way that I've seen publishers stock their friendly local game store. So no matter what your agreement is, the physical product you can always sell anywhere, but exclusivity means you are digitally exclusive to our site. The difference between those accounts is not huge. It's basically like what you are and are not allowed to do in terms of where you're selling things. The difference comes in with royalties. So we don't charge you for hosting your content. We do not upcharge our printing. We try and make all of this wonderful world of tabletop gaming accessible for creators and customers. That's like super important to us. And personally, it's super important to me. Like, if you are out there thinking my game, I can't really put it up, no one's going to want it. I want it. I want to see your game. I want you to put your voice out in the world of tabletop, because that's how it gets more diverse and more interesting and way more fun. So when you upload a digital title and you are exclusive with us, you're going to set a selling price. It could be $10, it could be pay what you want, but we take 30% of that selling price and you get 70%. When you're non-exclusive, we take 35% and you get 65%. So it's actually a really small difference, but it's about what you think your needs are going to be. If you're a single person who's just like, I want to make a few games and I don't expect to expand it very much, I highly recommend that you get an exclusive account, because you get 5% more and you earn a little bit more publisher promotion points every month. We won't get into that today, but if you have questions about publisher promotion points or anything we've said today, you can email publisherservices@onebookshelf.com. That email comes to my inbox, and if it's a question for Brian, I'll send it to him. If it's a question for one of the wonderful folks who run our DMs Guild, I'll send it to them. So keep that in mind. And I see that we have another question. This one is from Henry X. What about an idea I have for a module using old TSR box set games like GW Second Edition or original Star Frontiers? Do they allow stuff like that? You would, in a case like that, you would need to talk to the publisher. We can help facilitate that for you. Or you can do some online research, find a way to contact them and talk to them directly. The key, again, is once something exists, right? Even if it's just digitally, as a piece of created content, it belongs to the person that made it. And unless they explicitly specify that it's okay for you to use it for your own purposes, you can't. Now, if you're like, I'm just a person and I'm going to print out a picture of Keanu Reeves and he's going to be my character reference for my home D&D game, that's fine. That's called personal use. But if you want to list it on our sites, and even if you want to list it for free, and this is very, very important, so pay attention, any site like ours that requires a login for a library or for an account or something is considered a commercial site. It's not that it's not commercial because you've made it free. it's still commercial because the customer is exchanging a piece of information to get the thing that they want. So check with the publisher, check with us. If we can help you get in touch with them, we will. But don't assume it's okay until you've done your research, okay? We've got another question from Adriano Tenario. How does POD work, logistics and price-wise, for customers and publishers outside of the US? Do you want to answer this about cards, and then I'll get to books, Brian?
Sure. So for cards, we print in Kansas, central United States, and ship from there as well. We do not have an overseas printer currently, although I continue to try to find a partner that does check all the boxes that we needed to check. So there, there will be a little bit of shipping costs to get it from the U.S. to whatever destination country outside the U.S. And that's we have a deal where we have a slight discount on U.S. Postal Service shipping overseas. So it does might not be as sharp as it used to be. We just recently got that going, but it's still going to be somewhat pricey to get cards to you overseas.
Cool. Thank you. One note, while we're between cards and books, we cannot ship cards and books together. And it is because we have a card printer in Kansas, and then we have a separate book printer. So we ship to pretty much everywhere in the world. You can check the publisher knowledge base to get a good estimate of shipping prices. I also like to do a thing where I'll put a similar sized book into my cart and then put in whatever the relevant address is so I can get an even more accurate shipping estimate. But we also have a super cool way to do it with a spreadsheet, which to be honest with you, I do not have those details memorized, but it's on the publisher knowledge base if you're trying to estimate shipping. So we do ship pretty much worldwide. Our book printer has locations in the US and in the UK. Typically, an order going to Canada would be fulfilled out of the US, but an order going to say like Belgium would be printed in the UK and then shipped from there to Belgium. So it's a good system because it does help save on shipping. And you might be at home going, what about that? We've got information about that on our publisher knowledge base as well. And we build in whatever tax things need to happen, whether in the US or out. So there's a lot of notifications about it when you are placing an order. So when you're placing an order, definitely pay attention to the notifications we're serving you because they contain important information. So Chuck D is asking about the pre-order system. Can we talk about requirements for that and how it works? We don't really have a pre-order system. So what I recommend when folks are doing Kickstarters is that if you gather your information for your customer using any online tool, Kickstarter, BackerKit, if you're going with Indiegogo, wherever you're getting your customer information, you can enter that information into our system using our complimentary copy tools. We've got 2 different versions, and I'll tell you about those in a second. And what the complimentary copy tools allow you to do is fill those orders without the title being live. So if you've got a Kickstarter and you're like, hey, I told my backers they would get their books first, we can help you with that. You can send those books to your backers, and then later on you can make the hardcover, premium color, beautiful book that you created live for sale on our site once you've fulfilled your backers' orders. But we don't have a specific pre-order system. the reason I said I would get back to the complimentary copy tool is there are two versions of the tool. There's an older version and the newer version. One is for when you have collected all the money from your backers and you are paying the base print cost plus shipping for your books or cards. The other is when your customer or your backer is paying the base print cost for the item and shipping. We cannot separate those two costs. There's no way in our system, in part because we are a website. We are not the actual printer. We work with printers, like Brian mentioned, we're constantly looking for an overseas card partner. So those costs go directly to those companies, and that's why we can't separate them, because we don't have any control over their systems. So if you're at home and you're like, I want to do a Kickstarter and I want to only charge my backers shipping, please talk to me, because I will need to explain why you can't quite do it that way and help you brainstorm ideas that make it work the way you want it to for your customers. But keep that in mind. Base print cost plus shipping never can be separated, always together. Thank you. Okay. Do we have any more questions? Oh, while we're thinking about that, since I was telling you about Kickstarter, I want to tell you about one of the other things we can do for you. As a publisher on our sites, you have a ton of promotional tools available to you. You can submit your titles for deals of the day. You can send your customers emails. You can do a lot of very, very cool things. Make a banner to rotate on the front page. But one of the things you can't do is include most external links in your customer emails. So that's when you email me and say, hey, Adriel, I'm launching a Kickstarter campaign and it starts in 5 days. Can you send this email out on the day we launch? And then I take your email and I send it to your customers for you so that the Kickstarter link can be included, so that we can include images in a really easy way. It's one of the things that it's really important to us to be able to, again, like, help you get your content out there, but we can't really allow every external link. That could go very poorly very quickly, as I'm sure you can imagine. So with crowdfunding, that's one of the things we offer. But I always say to new publishers, if you're planning on a crowdfunding campaign, please talk to me or Brian if it's cards beforehand, because I want to make sure that you have all the information you need ahead of time. I don't want you running into something after the fact, like the shipping example. I've had a few folks this week be like, I told my backers they would only have to pay shipping. And I hate to be the person to say, I'm so sorry, but there's just no way to do that. So we are here as resources to ask those questions of, join our Discord, ask other publishers what they've done. Like, we really, we want you to do well, and we want your games out there, like, just because it's awesome. But again, on a personal note, because I want to play them. So yeah, always reach out, publisher services at One Bookshelf, with any site related questions that you have, and either myself or Brian or one of the number of amazing people we work with will help you with that question. No question is dumb either. Don't be like, I have a question and I don't know where to find the answer, but please ask us. It's worth it. Looks like we've got one more question from Henry X. What about solo RPGs like Quill? What kinds of sales should budding indie publishers realistically expect if they write and develop that kind of original content? Okay, Henry, there's a lot to my answer to this question. Initially, you should not expect a ton of sales. However, that does not mean that you should be like, well, I've been working on this for 3 years and I'm just going to give it out for free because I want people to read it. Don't do that. Price your work appropriately for the amount of blood, sweat, and tears you've put into it, okay? And what you're going to need to do is build that audience. One recommendation I have, if so for example, I was looking at the Western Cantos again today, which are solo RPGs where you are writing a poem about being a cowboy, but also you're dead and you're a ghost, and they're freaking amazing. And if you've got an RPG like a Quill or something like that that has enough content to allow for it, I recommend creating a 1-page or 2-page kickstart that you do offer for free. And I meant to say quick start, but I've been saying Kickstarter so much it just came out as Kickstart. So you want this quick start that you give out for free. And what that does for you is it builds your customer base on our site. And then you use that handy dandy email tool to tell folks when you've got a new title up, or use me to email them about a campaign. I realize we're running out of time. I just want to say, you're not going to get a ton of sales initially, but they can snowball, and you need to be the one like pushing on that tiny snowball to make it into like the giant head for your snowman, or your snowman's giant base. Like, use social media tools, use our promotional tools, and as your audience grows, it's sort of going to grow exponentially, because that's how these things work. Like, when you get another person who's like, hey, I loved X, they might tell their friends that they loved X. I sent a customer email for one of my publishers this week for a Kickstarter campaign, and I was like, oh, my friend Sharky loves that main game. I'm going to make sure he knows about this resource that is giving him a whole bunch more content for this game he loves to run. So one person is going to tell another person, and then it's just going to grow. Don't be disappointed if day 1, day 2, day 30, you haven't made $500 yet. You'll either get there eventually and make more content, or you'll decide to do something else. Either way, like, do it, use our tools, and use our help, because we want you to succeed. Okay, I think that answered that question. I hope it did. Brian,
Yeah.
will you please introduce yourself again and tell us a cool fact about DriveThruCards?
Cool fact about DriveThruCards. All right. I'm Brian.
Sorry, I put you on the spot.
That was an unexpected question.
Sorry.
I'm Brian Petkash. I publisher relations for all things DriveThruCards and card-related products through DriveThru. I do want to reiterate, though, what Adriel said earlier about we are here to help you. No question is dumb. There's a lot to, or there can be a lot to, getting your title up on site, getting your files ready, and we are happy to help you with any aspect of that process. And we help publishers all the time, every day, every week, get through our system. And our site has a lot of tools that publishers have at their disposal, and it can be a little overwhelming, and we can help you kind of get through that too, to figure out what you really need to do, what you need to do just to get going. So please reach out to us with any questions. As far as the cool, that stalled enough for me to think of a cool thing. We don't have creator custom content like DriveThruRPG does, but we have partnered with a few different publishers to do custom card creators so that fans of games can create their own cards. That card is printed and shipped directly to them, and they can slip it right into their game. So Some of the card creators we have are for Ascension from Stoneblade, Boss Monster from Brotherwise, Doomtown from the folks at Pine Box, and Vampire the Eternal Struggle from Black Chantry. And we have others as well, but they're really a neat tool to go in and kind of create your own cards and have those be part of your game. So thank you all for being here. Really appreciate you showing up. Really appreciate the questions too. They were great. And thanks to Adriel for running a good show.
Thanks, Brian. I'm Adriel Wilson. I'm the Indie Publisher Services representative at DriveThruRPG. You can reach me, and if I can't answer your question, I will give it to the person who can at publisherservices@onebookshelf.com. And I actually have a cool card fact. I love this. With our UV coating on our cards, you can write on them with dry erase markers and erase them, and the card will be fine. Like, I think that's great. And a cool DriveThruRPG fact. Oh, I had one, and then I started thinking about the card fact, and I can't remember it. So, friends, you're just going to have to live with not knowing what my cool DriveThruRPG fact would be. Thank you so much for attending today, and please feel free to reach out with your questions. Have a great rest of your